Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 373. My name is Brando, and I am so excited to have another fan review today. This is just going to be this has been one of the perks of doing this Appetite for Distortion podcast, not just getting to interview people like Blackie Lawless, last episode of Wasp, just very awesome rock stars, but to get to meet you, which is me, basically the Guns N' Roses fan. I just happen to have a podcast. Although, Nicholas, you have a really nice microphone too. You look like you're a podcaster. You're not a podcaster though. You know, like I didn't ask you that off the air. Like, can you tell us what your secret life is other than being a Guns N' Roses fan?
Hi Brando, thanks for having me. Yeah, I used to do some own music and like a little home studio. So I use the Audio Technica 80 2020. And also I have to bring my best microphone to this podcast. Yeah.
That's cool. And I just never know what to. I say I can do radio with anybody, which is true. I just never know what to expect from the other side when people agree to do the fan review. Like people ask, "Oh, what do I need? What sort of equipment?" You don't need anything.
Okay.
You can use your phone. People had people do fan reviews in their car. But obviously,
Oh yeah.
it looks better. It sounds better if you're in the room. But I'm just mainly there for the stories and the people. So I just want to get that out there because a lot of people ask that. So Nicholas, a few months ago, reached out because I had put out the whole when Guns N' Roses are announcing all these shows, South America, Latin America, all these just European countries that I may never get to go to. It's also the same thing here in the States when you're doing these fan reviews, but
Yeah.
especially international. If you want to do a review, come on the podcast. And Nicholas, one of the people that follows my podcast at the AFD podcast, inboxed me and I said, "Hey, remind me a week before the show because I'm gonna
Yeah.
forget," and I did forget. So sorry, Nicholas.
No worries, it's okay.
And then I was excited to talk about Bogotá, Colombia. So there's a few things, I guess, because you were at both shows. Because the last couple episodes, I think, as we're recording this, the day where Guns N' Roses are in Mexico,
Right now,
and
yeah.
yeah, as we're recording, I try to, even though it's a podcast, it can be listened to anytime. I try to record in real time to make you sound like you're here with us.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, as we're recording this, we did had fans from Brazil and Argentina on, so got their perspective and learned how passionate their fans are. So I'm really excited to learn about the Colombian fans and also to dispel some of the maybe stereotypes that are out there about because as an American fan, especially what happened, or as we know what happened, as reported by the news over the years in Colombia, Bogota,
That's right.
1992, and with Guns N' Roses. That I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But if I just want to know a little bit about you, though, if you can tell us, are you from the area? Like, where? Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been a Guns N' Roses fan? If I can ask that.
Uh yeah, I mean, I will be a kind of young Guns N' Roses fan. I'm from here, from Bogotá, Colombia, and I've been a Guns N' Roses fans. I mean, since 19 years old. When I started to discovering Guns N' Roses videos on YouTube and that stuff. Also, I used to be into Guns N' Roses because of a legendary video game called Guitar Hero. So
Say that. Say that again. By the way, you say that so much. Say that very suave. Say Guitar Hero again.
Guitar Hero.
No, no. Say it the way you said it. It was so suave, like Antonio Banderas, like Guitar Hero. You said it so awesome. I don't know.
Guitar Hero, Guitar Hero. I don't know
Oh
when I
no!
said
See, now I'm gonna make you. You said it so naturally. See, I ruined it because I wanted to point out. Well, I was talking about this with Nicholas. Sorry to cut you off, but just to
it. Okay.
sure, I'm pronouncing things right. So if I accidentally say because my New York brain says Bogota for the stupid
Okay.
casino, it's not. It's a mistake. So I always have to think Bogota.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
there's
it's different, right? Because in English you can say Bogota, but in Spanish is Bogota.
okay.
So the pronunciation is different, uh, but it's kind of the same. So as I told you, I just starting to Guns N' Roses also with the video game with Guitar Hero 3, which was a polemic video game for Guns N' Roses and all the stuff that Axel do with the demands and stuff with the video game. So I just basically was too young when I start to get into Guns N' Roses, and as many fans, we love Guns N' Roses with the songs, with the passionate about the records. But I was just main into music when I start to grow up and start to appreciate Guns N' Roses in a very different way. So I start to get into the records, the lyrics, the process, the creative process, and the band's history. Also, even when Chinese Democracy came out, many of my friends says it's not Guns N' Roses. I mean, it's the cliche debate about the Chinese Democracy. Here in Colombia was basically the same because rock and roll fans here in Bogota, Colombia, are just living as a nostalgia memory. So they prefer to recall or remember Guns N' Roses as the Just Revolution era and not as the Chinese Democracy. They think that it's maybe an Axl Rose solo project. But for me, it was not. I just fell in love with Guns N' Roses and every project, also Slash and Duff's project. So yeah, I was into Guns N' Roses many years ago, but I am too young. I'm 24, 25 years old, so I was not in the '92 epic show here in Bogota.
Sure.
Next show, Guns N' Roses, that they were here were in the Chinese Democracy World Tour in 20, I think was 2010 here in Bogota, Colombia, with the
Okay.
Chinese Democracy World Tour, and then was the obvious Not in This Lifetime tour, 2016.
And you were able to
But
go to the 2010. Was that your first time seeing them?
no, I was still little, and my parents were no, you're not going to.
Yeah, I'm not good at
It's
my
very
math. Yeah, how
no, yeah, it was very funny because later in the show I will tell you the story. But '92 show was a very epic show with many disasters and people in a riot near to the stadium. Was a really hell of a fire show, and my parents remember Guns N' Roses as that in that time. So in 2010, I was very young. Uh, well, I have to listen them to the radio and friends that go to that
Mhm.
show. And my first opportunity was in the Not in This Lifetime tour,
Okay.
2016. But that show was not here in Bogota. That was
Where?
a coincidence. We were waiting for the announcement on the radio. There is a radio here in Colombia called Radioactiva or Radioactiva in Spanish, which is the barely the only rock station, rock radio station here in Colombia.
Mm.
So we, as a Guns N' Roses fans, we noticed when Guns reunite in Coachella and the Troubadour in LA, and we were waiting that announcement. And when they announced the rock concert, it was in another city, but here in Colombia, called Medellin, which is like 10 hours driving, more or less, from Bogota, and a 45-minute flight from Bogota.
Okay.
So I have to buy airplane tickets, hotel, leave the university for a couple days because I was in exams and kind of that. But many of the fans, rock fans here in Bogota, have to do the same. So it was a very good show, but was not here in Bogota, unfortunately.
Still, that's traveling and to do that kind of a commitment that young and to so maybe before we even get into the review of the two shows we went into,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting to hear your parents' mindset because you know what? Yeah, I'm a little older than you, but I'm also young and respecting Guns N' Roses. In 1992, I said I was listening to the Muppet Babies. I was watching. I
Okay.
still watch the Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters when I can, but that's when they
Yeah.
were new, at the
Yeah.
time. So I only know of what's been again put out there about 1992 about the two shows that were scheduled and one was canceled and made to be one, and that it would rain during November rain, and there was issues with the promoter and the band leaving and money, and there were riots. So what did you grow up like? I don't know. Is it kind of like if growing up as a Colombian, boy? Did you grow up as at this story? Did your dad tell you about the? In back in my day, Guns N' Roses 1992. Did he tell you the story by the fire growing up? Or I mean, what did you know of Guns N' Roses? Because that's got to be. I can't think of anything comparable. Because maybe growing up here in America or anywhere. I mean, Montreal, but that wasn't, again, that's Canada. What was
Yeah,
the big, I'm trying to think of a big famous ride that you guys always hear about. Altamont with the Stones, but that's before my time. But
yeah.
just to have that really associated with that city, with that country, and the band, with that band, it's, I don't know. What you tell me.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of perspectives about that show. As I told you, I just grew up with Wikipedia and stuff like that, and I just grew up just watching the videos that are in YouTube about that show. My parents and the neighbors that uh, were adults in that time, and also asking to the promoters that lives here actually in Bogota, Colombia, and yeah, for example, one of the promotions to this, we're fucking back to, I don't know if I can say rude words in the podcast. I'm sorry about that,
No, you
but
can.
yeah, in this tour, one of the promotions were that Guns N' Roses will play in Bogota after 30 years, and they start to doing interviews with the promoters and with the people that bring Guns N' Roses here in Bogota in '92. So young fans start to, with the curiosity of knowing what happened this show, we start to Googling it and Wikipedia and radio interviews. So yeah, there's a lot of perspective in that show, and maybe my parents were not Guns N' Roses fans, so they watched the news that night in Bogota, that November night in here in Bogota, with all the riot because of the fans that could not enter to the first show because the second show was canceled. It was a mess about the logistic and the scenario, and the roof of the show was broken last night.
Right.
So it was a very epic. I mean, Slash and Axel talk about it in the show because they remember that night here in Bogota, Colombia. So you can hear perspective about Guns N' Roses fans in '92 because for us as a part of a South America um, country, it was very difficult that in the 90s, rock band came here and play in our country. You know, 90s it was very common that rock bands played in America, in, for example, Canada, Europe, but they didn't want to come here to South America. For example, Metallica used to came here to Colombia in the end of the 90s, 98, 99, I think was the first presentation of Metallica, Iron Maiden. So I think it was a very good show because Guns N' Roses came to Colombia in a very high point of its career. I mean, in the in the Use Your Illusion tour and era was very good. So you can hear the people that were that first night in the stadium. That was a very impressive thing. I mean, it was a unique show. Um, but the people that have tickets for the second show, well, they are still mad, I think, because they could not see Guns N' Roses, and that's because the riot started near the stadium. So the neighbor located where's in the stadium was with it was a really mess. So the police cannot control the riot, cannot control the people, because they want to go in the first show. So the second show was canceled, and the people that have tickets, they say, "Oh, fuck that! I'm gonna get inside the stadium for the first show." They could not, so they start to destroying all the neighborhood. Police cannot control that, so it was not very common that you see that kind of stuff in the news in Colombia. So that's why it made it epic. And if you can search the set list of that night, I think Guns N' Roses played like around 8 or 10 songs because of the rain, because of the sound, and it was a really mess about that. So yeah, you can find two perspective about one of the parents that see that on the news and said that was wrong. You don't have to do that, and the young people at that time that go to the show or near the show and have I think the time of their life.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I believe there was a coup in the nearby Venezuela in the government. So it was just a very tumultuous, insane time with an insane band on an insane tour. It really was. So what did you have any trepidation, or were you told by your parents all these years later not to go in 2016? Like, do you have visions that it's the same band, or they
Yeah,
know it was 30 years later?
yeah. My mom was so worried because
Really nice.
you are going to go to see Guns N' Roses, but Guns N' Roses that did not split up in 95, 96. Yeah, they come back. And she said, like, oh, really? Who's coming back? And I said, Slash, yeah, and Duff. And she said, you have to go, but be careful, please. So because it was a massive news here
Sure.
in Colombia, but was a little bit disappointed because fans were expecting to be to expect that Guns N' Roses play here in Bogota as a payback for the 92 show because they didn't finish the show and it was like a mess. So people were expecting that. And when they told the news, maybe it's kind of expensive for, to travel from. Also, the show was like Wednesday or Thursday. So people have to work and maybe travel
Uh-huh.
to another city was a very bit complicated. It was not a sold out show. For example, as I told you as a fact, 2016 show in Medellin, Colombia was not a sold out show, but the shows this week, sorry, was sold out in a
Huh.
couple of minutes. So it
Interesting.
was it was a different yeah, it was a different situation because you will expect to be a sold out show in the not in this lifetime tour because you know they passed a lot of years since we haven't seen Slash and Axel and Duff, and people have the band in the memories and that. Also avoiding the 2010 show, as I mentioned you, the Chinese democracy show here in Bogota, because it was like a very normal show. Many people, as I told you, don't like the group alienation at that time, so they came here. So we I will not mention you that show because for me it will be a very very cool experience to see that alienation and at the time because they play a lot of Chinese democracy songs I like. But the 2016 show will be the great opportunities to young fans to see Guns N' Roses for the first time. So after that, answering your question, yeah, my mom was very worried. My dad was very worried. I used to at that time I studied in a university here in Bogota. So I just have to say the teacher, fuck off, man. I need to go to see Guns N' Roses and catching a plane in the morning and all the hotels near the stadium was, I mean, sold out. It was crazy, But you can see like I don't know, like 3 or 4 generations, like grandpa, dad, son, and grandson, all of them going to see Guns N' Roses, even if they only know Sweet Child of Mine. It's okay. We will
Yeah.
talk about that later. But it was great. It was a different show, for example, but it was. I think it was experience for my life. I got a tattoo of that.
Okay. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I'm noticing if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Nicolás Marin, am I getting that last name right? Say it in your native, tongue. Say how to say your name properly.
And Spanish is called Nicolás Marín.
Oh, Nicolás Marín. That's close enough. I don't
Yeah,
know why
yeah,
making it
Nicolás.
sound Italian. I don't know why. I'm trying out for the Mario sequel, I guess.
That's good for me.
Yeah, but that's very cool. Did you know of any do you have any friends or family like uncles that went in 1992? Like, how did you become such a young fan? I've talked about in the early episodes how I got into it through classic rock radio and through friends, but did you know anybody that went in 1992?
Or if I have any friends that have
Yeah,
went to 92,
if you know friends, uncles, did you have a teacher? Any
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
people?
Many. I have a sister that it's like it's 7 years older than me. So
Oh,
she
your
had
sister.
friends. Yeah. So
Okay.
she had friends that went to the 92 show. Many teachers, as you mentioned, that had the first show ticket, so they could get inside. So as a coincidence, I'm gonna tell you a fact. I went this two past shows here in Bogota, and my friend's mom went to the 92 show here in Bogota, and 30 years later, she saw the band again, and she started crying, and she
Aw.
started. It was a very cool sensation, and I mean, in the stadium you can see older people that may be in the 92 shows, and for them seeing Axel one more time was like a payback, as I say to you. And yeah, you get also you can find many 92 fans, 92 people that go to the concert in the queue line before you get inside the stadium on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay. And see, that's why I ask, because it's interesting to talk to fans who are from Montreal, from St. Louis, from Vancouver, all these
Yeah,
Philadelphia, all these places that kind of get a redemption show with this Guns N' Roses, let's call it victory tour,
yeah,
because it's just there. Because you were right, in 2016, it is interesting that they did not sell out in that location. But you're right, logistics, day of the week, problems that affect anybody in the world, no matter where you are, human problems. It sucks to go to a concert during the middle of the, which I'm going next Wednesday to see the Smashing Pumpkins and Jane's Addiction at Madison
yeah,
Square
cool.
Garden. Quick side note, just bummer that Dave Navarro is not going to be with them because has had COVID for like a year,
Yeah,
apparently. So get well, Dave Navarro. It's weird that like my interview last November, December with him. It was
yeah,
like one of his last one. I don't want to say last ones, like he's dead, but
yeah,
just strange. But all these kind of redemption shows, it's really cool to get the perspective. And every fan that comes on, I always like to see and hear about the eras of fans that are there, the little kids, the the young ones. I don't know what to call you, Nicholas. 24. I want to say I want to say my of the same age, the peer, but no, I'm an old man. I'm a year away from 40. This sucks, man. So and there are people older than me that listen that are laughing at me. But the whole point is, you're right. If everybody knows Sweet Child of Mine, everybody is meeting there. So let's get to these shows, these back-to-back shows. And they hadn't on this current leg. I don't think they've done back-to-back in any cities. Right? And is this the first time? I mean, I could be mistaken. I wish I had a producer, but it's just
back to
back-to-back.
back. Back to back, you mean the two show in a row, yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I mean, well, as a Colombian show, man, I mean, we it's nearly impossible to see a rock band doing two shows in a row here, for example, in our country. Maybe in Argentina, it's more common that you can see, or in Brazil, it's more common that you can see bands that play many straight nights. But in the case of Guns N' Roses, in this South American tour leg, only was Bogota that have that, and it was a very complicated situation because I don't know if you know that Bogota it's located at a very high altitude. It's
Okay.
like 8,400 feet over the sea. So it's a very high city. So many of the fans was worried about Axel's voice
Huh.
and stamina because 3 hours show, 2 nights in a row could nearly destroyed him. It was a very uh tricky situation with the media that
Huh.
they start asking, will Axel Rose will last 3 hours in a show here in Bogota? Because it's a very high city. Also, tourists from America suffer with altitude sickness when they come here with
Oh.
your head, with your lungs. You can barely breathe here in Bogota. If you're
Wow.
a tourist, when you came here, also in Bolivia, for example, Quito, in Ecuador, are very high cities, and the altitude, for example, if you're a singer, will kill you. Um, in 2016, for example, Rolling Stones came here, and the
Hmm.
same question was made by the media. Will Mick Jagger will last 2 hours, 2 hours and a half doing a show, running all through the stage without getting a mask with oxygen. So yeah, the Stones will do. Yeah, they do a great show, but Axel's and Guns N' Roses show is very different. He runs everywhere, also with high notes and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, Guns N' Roses do the 3 hour show, the 2 nights in a row, in the perfect condition, and it was nearly a miracle because, for example, in nights here in Bogota, also it's very cold. So it was really very very difficult to Axel to sing the high notes of any songs. So I think Axel do have a very good preparation for that show. It was not easy for him and for the band. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I wouldn't have thought about that. See, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Any future fan review, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear about the landscape. I want to hear
Oh
about
yeah.
the altitude. I want to hear about that's because you're right. It depends. I'm just thinking in terms of my own brain to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
If I like when I went to Arizona just to meet Alan
Yeah.
Niven and just driving, I get car sickness so easily. I get sick so easily. And I take
That's right.
Dramamine whenever I fly now. I have a stereotypical, Yiddish stomach. It's just, I'm very
Yeah.
sensitive. So yeah, I probably wouldn't do there, or I would have to take Dramamine or some medication. But yeah, you hear that Axel, he's always had a prep time, even in the 90s when he's late, that he's always had a prep time. For those who know him, I'm not talking like the VH1 classic, the Reels
Yeah.
documentaries. If you listen to Doug Goldstein's interviews, if you listen to people who've worked with him, that he takes his craft very seriously. And I'd have to imagine he's this much of a pro at 60 years old to be aware of that. But that's not something I would think of. So that is really that's fascinating to learn about. So did you go with anyone to does anyone share your passion for Guns N' Roses? Because a lot of people I talk to just go to a show alone. Did you do that?
Yeah, there's a history about that. I just have friends that like rock music, but in my generation, there's a few people that like rock and roll. So it's very hard to find someone my age to ask them to go to see Guns N' Roses. But yeah, the first show I go with a friend that was the the best player on a band that I have on school.
Okay.
So we share the rock music, and the second show I just bought the ticket like a week or 2 weeks so before the show, because I want to hear if there's any extra song, hoping that they will play something like "So Fine," for example, or any mystic song that they haven't played. So I just bought the ticket because I was expecting, like, for example, any changes in the set list,
Okay.
because I'm a huge fan, and I'm the one that see the set list from the other shows here in South America, for example. And yeah, the first show was very good. As I told you, I was going out. I go with a friend, and we have this seats section near the scenario, near the show. But the second show, I was in the general admission. That difference, for example, I was in June in Miami because I was seeing the stadium tour that play Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison,
Okay.
and Joan Jett, and I have the opportunity to go there and see the show. And the general admission in that kind of shows, you can see the seats near the scenario. Here in South America, as you can see the videos, it's people in the front, and that's it. So I just was there in general admission, seeing them, just to caption how about the sound differ, how about the visuals differ from a seat section, for example, and obviously expecting to hear any songs that they haven't played in the South American leg. But that didn't happen.
Right. And that's what's cool. But I've talked about the set list ad nauseum, especially ever since they added just absurd. I don't want to hear about the set list. That was enough of a change. I mean, hard school, but they're adding Shadow of Your Love. There's a lot of stuff that they've done. I know there is I mean, I don't know if this is what you're alluding to. If they want to play something magical, I forgot the word that you did.
Mystical.
Mystical.
Yeah.
That it was shot by Megan on her Instagram, I believe. It was slash noodling, or he was doing the chords for "Don't Damn Me," which has never been played live.
Here in Bogota, they sound check.
I believe so. Yeah, it was a sound check there. I believe it was the sound check there. It was
Oh
something.
yeah. Megan was live on Instagram, but it was like a sneak peek. But yeah, hoping that they will play any kind of song. Do you think they will maybe play the songs in the future?
I wouldn't
Would
put it
you?
past them. I wouldn't put it past them because they do pull out things like Coma and Locomotive and Dead Horse. I don't think that anything is beneath what they're capable of. Honestly, I'm not trying to be Mr. Positive. I don't want to be negative either because I certainly have my bones to pick with the lack of information and just having no real interviews since the reunion. It's just there are things to get frustrated with, but there are enough changes to keep you guessing. Guest appearances, you just don't know. All these shows, these Guns N' Roses shows, are events. That's how I look at
Yeah.
them. They're more than just a concert. They're events. So the part of the event is the location, not just Bogota, but the venue. Can you describe the venue? Is it normally a football stadium, a soccer stadium? Where do they?
Yeah. The stadium they played it tonight it's a soccer stadium. Yeah, and I don't know if you know, but here in Colombia, as in Argentina or in Brazil, soccer is like a religion. So
Sure.
many people like to watch soccer, and most people don't like them to do rock concerts, for example, in the stadiums because of the damage that could leak the scenario here in the stadium, for example. It's a very polemic discussion right here, for example, in Colombia.
Maybe I think they perfected it enough. I mean, I don't know enough about the ins and outs of building these things, these contraptions, but here in America, I mean, they do it in the halftime at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
They've been
that's right.
playing it at baseball stadiums for a while, football stadiums. I've seen Guns N' Roses play at a football stadium where the Jets and Giants play from the NFL. I was really hoping to see them play at Yankee Stadium or Citi Field baseball, but not yet. I think it's a unique perspective to see them in. But yeah, just because it holds, because you said it was sold out. So how many does it hold? Because these soccer stadiums are massive. Because you're right, it is a religion. So how many people were there? Would you say?
We're in the show. I mean, maybe 50K per night.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, a bunch of people. But truly, here in Bogota, we don't have many big venues to receive rock and rolls band. They uh, they have to play on the soccer stadium here in Bogota. For example, weeks after that concert, Coldplay just played like 2 or 3 nights in that stadium.
Okay.
So I mean, South America and the countries and South America don't have the opportunity to decide in which venue, for example, Guns N' Roses is going to
Huh.
play, because
Right.
uh, you know they have to do it on stadiums or in very big venues. For example, I mean, in Argentina was also in a stadium, Lima in Peru was also in a stadium, and Uruguay, Montevideo was a stadium. So we don't have many choices on the carpet that we can say, like, for example, yeah, lead them to a theater or something like that. They prefer to send them to a stadium.
That was a point that was brought up when I've mentioned just the passion of Latin American fans, South American fans, European fans, and it's something that maybe we've taken for granted here. I don't want to speak of all of America, but maybe I should. No, I'm just kidding. But especially here in New York, I could see anybody along Long Island, New York. I could travel to Boston or I can travel to big cities, Philadelphia, all these big cities around me where bands come to play. And so yeah, maybe I am a little, I don't want to say jaded, but I think now I've learned, especially seeing Guns N' Roses since the reunion of Slash and Duff, or I should say Slash and Axel, because it can always end. So I want to see it every chance I could possibly get. But
Yeah.
of those bands that, or those artists that are just, you'll never get another opportunity because they either broke up or they passed away.
Yeah.
I'll always regret never seeing Chris Cornell or Tom Petty. So it's not
Yeah.
even, so I, even though they're always around, I can't have that mindset because I took advantage. Because like, yeah, they'll tour next year. They'll tour next year. That's not always going to be I know it's not always going to be that extreme, but
Yeah.
yeah, especially if bands don't always come to your country. Yeah, so maybe I don't. Sorry to be picky. I don't want to see them here. I want to see them there. Shut up, Brandon. You're lucky you got to see them at all, right? So what were you looking forward to most? I guess for the first night. What was? Or just tell us some of the highlights, I guess, of the first night when you went.
Yeah, okay. First of all, telling you that yeah, you're very lucky to see many bands in a year and have the disposition to see the bands in every city next to you. Because in South America, for example, as I mentioned you, I have to buy tickets and hotel and that stuff to see Motley Crue and Def Leppard's to the stadium tour because they never gonna be here in South America. Well,
Yeah,
they try to think, and the promoters here try to pay the show to see Motley Crue and stuff like here, but it's very difficult situation. And when that happens, you see a sold out in 30 minutes, like Guns N' Roses. So you have to be on the night train to have the pre-sale tickets and that stuff. So yeah,
okay.
the highlights of the first night was I have zero expectation, to be honest, about the set list because they start to play in kind of the same set list in South America. But for me as a Guns N' Roses fans and seeing Guns N' Roses, they were like three songs that sounds like magic. It was very cool here about first one is Wichita Lineman. I know that it's not a Guns N' Roses song, but when you hear it live here in with the South American crowd and with the night, it sounds perfect. It's so cool. I mean, it's very cool that Axel, or I don't know who in the band choose that said we have to play Wichita Lineman.
I think
Um,
probably him because I think he was a Glenn Campbell
yeah.
fan.
Oh yeah.
I think so, and
May,
I've become a fan of that. I really hope they release it in some form, live or recorded version of it.
I just start wondering that because I have to listen to YouTube with the video to hear it over and over again. But for for my surprise, it was a very cool thing. The second highlight, I mean, regarding to the set list, was the Blackberry intro
Okay.
of Patience, because I know you should probably know that when they were in Europe and with the Axel's voice problems and kind of stuff, they start to do, and I think was in the European leg, that intro with Blackbird of Patience. So yeah, was very cool to hear that live, because yeah, you have the opportunity to see the videos and stuff like that on YouTube, but with loud amplifiers in a stadium and many fans waiting for them, it was kind of magical. And obviously, hearing Absurd and Hard School live always, it's very good. I didn't have the opportunity to hear them in 2016 because they weren't released songs.
Right.
Uh, but I have to confess that I just hear the demos that was leaked in that time. I don't know if you know the demo leaks that
Sure.
maybe, yeah, that kind of stuff. I hear that song, and for me as a fan, I'm sorry, actually, if you hear that, I'm really sorry, but I love your work so much. And when I hear, for example, Hard School um out, I said like, this life will be very great to hear in Slash and Duff playing this song. But also, the debate, as you mentioned, about how is the crowd here in Colombia, for example. Uh, was it a great concert? Was it a great ambient? Was it a great energy from the people? And the answer is no.
No.
I really want to bring that perspective here to the podcast, because I heard the episode with the fan review of Brazil and Argentina, telling you that the crowd and that in, for example, Argentina show, as you can see, for example, videos from Buenos Aires, the crowd jumping in Welcome to the Jungle. Here in Colombia, if anyone in Colombia hear me, I'm sorry, but I'm telling you the truth. It's like a dead crowd here in Colombia,
Huh.
because it's similar to the US shows, where you see people with the beers, and you see them playing like Coma, and if you are a good fan, you're like, oh my god, they are playing Coma, and you can see people with the beer and talking in the middle of the song, and maybe don't have the same energy. Uh, and people from outside think that all South America have the same energy and have the same passionate fans. The reality here in Colombia was very different. I was hoping that you can see real Guns N' Roses fans that, even if they don't know all these songs, they'll try to enjoy the show and they'll try to jump and stuff like that. But the reality here in both shows was like, it's like the same energy that in other countries. Uh, it is cruel, but it seems to me that they open like a potato package and find the ticket inside. Like they find the ticket as a lottery, like as a prize, for example. Not that they will buy with the money and with effort, because you know that economic situation here in South America it's very difficult, very different than the US. So, for example, here as a South American fans, it's very difficult or complicated for you to buy a good ticket for Guns N' Roses. You have to save money or you have to invest to get in the ticket. So it's not easy, like the song. It's not easy for you to earn the tickets. You have to work so much for a ticket. And yeah, you can see fans, for example, not having a good energy. So yeah, I want to bring that because I mean, there's a lot of people that think that perspective from South American fans, and it's not for all the countries. I mean, also even for Brazil, sorry for Brazilian fans, but I think only Argentinian fans are so much passionate, not only with Guns N' Roses, but they are just like a unique country with that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. See, this is also the perspective I want. And I hear you because I'm thinking, yeah, it could be all Latin American countries. It's just we all here in boring, like again, we're jaded in New York or wherever American crowds, wherever I've been at least, are not rambunctious or crazy. But yeah, I mean, I guess, and I know you and I are kind of painting somewhat with a broad brush. There are fans that are like you, like me, that go there, know every single word and singing along. But yeah, to see some of those videos, like you said, in Buenos Aires of them singing "Welcome to the Jungle" and just moving as one, is just
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's something else to behold. So I don't think, but did that take away from your enjoyment? But did you still enjoy yourself these two shows?
Yeah, I mean, they start with It's So Easy, as you know, and it was a very, for example, very good song to start a show, as they always do. But you know, culture, people here, and it's culture that they have to record the whole concert and not enjoying. For example, you can see that kind of people, and you're like, oh my God, you paid a very expensive ticket to just record a concert, or you just paid an expensive ticket to enjoy the show
Sure.
and
Yeah.
to see them, because it's a one in a lifetime opportunity to see, for example, Guns N' Roses. uh Maybe they split up in the future and you can never see it again, or stuff like that, as you mentioned. But yeah, it tears me apart because I see young fans also recording the shows with no motivation, or with no glad, or with a big expectation to see Guns N' Roses. I act like a little kid, I started screaming, I lost my voice, I know every song, and I try to, just not to bother me, that kind of situation. I try to enjoy the show. Yeah.
Yeah, to live in the moment. And I think
Yeah.
at the beginning of phones and social media, it was kind of fun to show for me to share pictures or video, and now I really only do it for this podcast. because I try to live in the moment too. Because I look around and it's just like this person's in front of you. You're
Yeah,
gonna. Are you really even gonna watch this later on your phone? Like
it never happens.
you're not. And again, at the beginning of social media, Facebook, it was fun. It was like, oh,
Yeah,
this is all new technology. And now when I travel, I love, and when I go to see Guns N' Roses shows, it's almost like I'm taking the podcast with me. I'm taking listeners with me, and it's been really great for me to do that.
yeah,
But even when I do, I make sure to be like only a few songs because I don't want to be that guy either. I don't want to
yeah.
be that person. It's just because I also think about, well, how does the artist feel on the
That's
opposite
right.
end? But
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
there are plenty of those that encourage it of the younger artists, especially because I guess nobody carries lighters on them anymore. You can't. This isn't the days of Fonzie, I guess, because that's it. I don't know why I use that as an example. I'm just thinking like people who have
Yeah,
cigarettes always on them and things like that.
yeah,
But so if it's an emotional song, put your cell phones up. You got to put
yeah,
your cell phone up, and I kind of cringe every time that happens. I'd
yeah.
ra-
That's right.
yeah, I'd rather just sit in darkness than put my phone up sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, Unbelievable. So, and it's cool because I also shared kind of the same with you that some of my highlights are Wichita and Lyman, and I don't think I've seen them do Blackbird live before, but I do like the acoustic vibe
Yeah,
of what they bring to the show. That I would like to see them do more of. What I another version of Guns N' Roses that you and I did not see when they would do the Skin and Bones era, like the
that,
93, 92
that's right.
era. So I would love to see something scaled down a bit. And that goes back to, I think, earlier you asked this about Don't Damn Me, if you could see,
Yeah,
that was being played. I listened to that song again after that leak. And like a lot of the acoustic tracks, like Wichita Lineman, I think Axel, like that's in his wheelhouse now. I think he
yeah,
could do that song, and to do it for the first time ever in 2022 would be amazing. Why not?
yeah. I mean, as you said, I think it would be very great. First of all, for Axel's voice, because the debate and the polemic about his voice and people arguing about he starts singing in any other way. For example, one thing I see on YouTube videos about, I think was London show, they have to use his low voice on, for example, Night Train or Strange. It sounds amazing. I mean, that kind of stuff have I think Axel have an advantage with that, and he proved that with Wichita alignment, for example, as you mentioned. It would be great to see them in an acoustic way, for example, or with the piano. I mean, without leaks, for example, with perhaps. I hope maybe in future he released that song, but I love Axel's when he started playing piano, for example, not efforting his voice so much, for example, but if they start to touring a lot, they probably start to doing an acoustic part. It will be very great. But as I mentioned you, if people start to getting bored and doing nothing, seeing them playing, for example, You Could Be Mine or Night Train, what about seeing them with only acoustic? They start to, yeah, it will be a very disappointing thing also, as you mentioned, for the artist to see people only with the cameras and talking during a song when they try to do not only playing that, only bring you an experience.
I would think, because what are my crazy ideas? One of my crazy ideas, like I have so many. But if they do an acoustic tour, I would think that it would be on a smaller scale, and that
Yeah,
way you could jack up the prices. So you're only going to get real good fans that are going to pay those I don't know. That's just a
yeah,
thought, because I want to relive these experiences that I did not have. I want to say relive because I didn't live them the first time, but I want to have as close to an experience as these legendary Guns N' Roses shows as we've grown up hearing about.
yeah,
Maybe it's good that we didn't experience 1992. You and because you may have gotten hurt. Maybe it's
yeah,
good that I didn't. I just missed the Guns N' Roses riot in 2002 because they
yeah,
played New York and they canceled the next day in Philly and there was a riot. So I
Yeah,
have the, not that close to with danger, but still, you with all these, but you're now there in a good place. So, but you still want to be able to go and have fun and enjoy yourself. So I don't know. I guess
yeah,
I'm just I'm in a place with Guns N' Roses where I'm just having like fun with ideas and not really thinking about. So when people ask me about new music, I'm like, sure, it can happen. So yeah, don't damn me. Yeah, it can happen. Why not? Why not?
yeah.
It can happen. Are you a merch guy? Did you get any merch or lithographs or shirts?
Uh, well, one of it was very expensive here in Bogota. It was very very expensive. But I don't know if you see the lithograph for both shows. That was like one poster. Um, but it was very expensive. I didn't buy any merch or
Okay.
kind of stuff because it was very expensive, and it was not very good. That's one of the points I like to mention, that I think that Guns N' Roses don't bring the same merch for every South American country, because here in Colombia was a very low quality shirts,
Huh.
for example, and they like to pay them for like $50, $60 for that shirt, and you can find them outside the stadium for like $3 or $4, for example. I mean, it was a very disappointing thing about the merch, because, for example, when I see the stadium tour in June, uh, the merchandisings of Motley Crue and Def Leppard and Poison was really amazing.
Yeah.
So that you see the shirts, for example, and you said, $50 is a little bit high, but I will pay them because they are so cool. But
Mhm.
here in Colombia was not a very good stuff. Anything like, for example, like a bandana, Axel's bandana, like $40, $35. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's not
no.
worth that. But I know who's doing the lithograph, for example, for every show in South America. But here in Bogota was uh, per night, each lithography per night, and was like a very big poster. I think Del James posted on Twitter, and you can see the full poster of the two shows here in Colombia. It was very very good.
I know that our friend Arian Bueller has done a few of them. I'm just trying to, I'm looking at litherati.com. I don't know if you're aware of this website.
No, what's that? Yeah, I can see the old lithograph, I think.
It's every lithograph ever. And it's
Oh
just,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm just scrolling down live. I wish I had I'm going to keep saying I wish I had a producer until I get one. Come on, man. All right, I'm not gonna find it here. That was a big failure because I want to see if come on, I can freaking find this.
Oh
2020.
yeah.
Yeah, so just stall them, Nicholas. No, while I'm looking this up, what is the best piece of Guns N' Roses memorabilia that you do have?
Whoa. I mean, there's a lot of memories I have. One of I can recall, it's maybe related with the Chinese Democracy LP or vinyl that you have, that's behind you, because I have a very fun fact. In the 2016 show in Medellin, Colombia, they played Catcher in the Rye live,
Okay,
and for me, as a very very huge fan of Guns N' Roses, was like a dream listening to Catcher in the Rye, because I don't know if they play that song too often in the Not in This Lifetime tour, for example. So yeah, when I was a little kid doing tattoos, for example, and for example here in Bogota, trying to buy cities, for example, the Use Your Illusions cities. Um, for example, the Spaghetti Incident vinyl or CD in Bogota was extremely impossible to. That's one that I have missing, the Spaghetti Incident album. I didn't
okay.
catch the CD or the vinyl. It's very it's very complicated to buy here vinyls in Bogota. Uh, it's more easy that you can find in on America, right? But maybe it's because I like music and I try to collect vinyls, for example. But memorabilia about the shows, or maybe to see them again, Slash and Duff, for the first time and playing it so easy, for example. Oh yeah, I reminded. I have to tell you that one fact of the previous show this year. it's like they don't use pyro in the shows, and I think they don't use pyro in any of South American show as I can
No,
recall. I don't know
yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if you got the reason, but in the Not in This Lifetime tour they use it, and they use it a lot.
I think because it was a few episodes ago, we had Pyro Pete on, who did all the pyro on the Use Your Illusion tour, and we spoke a little bit about the current show, what he thinks about it. And I
Yeah.
believe it's cost effective when they started doing the shows in Vegas that way, and kind of
Yeah.
see, and seeing all the stuff, the imagery you can come up with in the
Mhm.
background, which is cool. It is cool, but I think it's, it's safer. But I think it's cost effective. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, that's my perspective of it. And by the way, I did find it on Litherati.com. It is not Arian Bueller, the artist. It's Anderson
Yeah.
Green Devil. And yeah, it's cool where it's two, like, it's one of those where I like where they did it in Los Angeles. I think even in New York, if you look over my left shoulder, it's
Yeah.
one of the shows from their New York City MSG run. It's the Gangs
And
of New York.
you buy there.
I
Yeah.
did buy it there, so only $50. Only $50, like, as opposed to the up price that every fan does. So,
Okay.
and the other nights were Slash and Duff separately, all gangs in New York. So here are there are
Okay.
two separate ones where one is the red robot attacking, or the red monster, I should say, attacking the robot that I have tattooed on me now. And
Yeah.
and I
The
don't know.
Appetite for Destruction robot. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like behind him, I don't know what's it's burning gold. It's like kind of like it's like a burning city of gold almost. And
Yeah.
the first night, maybe it's a field because it looks like they're just outside in this Aztec-y kind of place, and skeletons of Duff, Axel, and Slash. Duff wearing the Not in Today Satan shirt, and
Yeah.
Axel wearing the Kill Your Idols Jesus shirt, which he no longer
Classic.
wears, which because he would he be canceled? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Immediately in social media.
yeah, but they're awesome, awesome lithographs. But I understand that if you get there and they're sold out, it's carrying around something the entire show. That's not easy to it's not like a T-shirt where you can just shove in your pocket if you don't, or to put it on or something like that. But yeah, I only have the two. Yeah, I only have the no, I have more than that. I forget. They're not all
Warner.
put up. I have
Yeah.
the Hawaii one that I bought from Arian Bueller, the
Okay.
artist. It was expensive, but he still gave me a deal on it and autographed it. It was still expensive. I'm not gonna act like,
It's autographed.
yeah. It's here. Arian Bueller. Oh, you can't see it here, but yeah, it's autographed.
Oh, very cool, man.
And
Also, I have to say to you,
mhm.
here in Bogota, it's a very rainy city. So if you buy the lithograph and you get out of the stadium and start to rain, oh
Oh,
man,
oh
50
yeah.
back to the trash can.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're done. And shame on me if I forget, but our listener fan Eric from Ohio, he sent me a lithograph from Fargo, and that's the one that looks like, is it rolled up? Yeah, I think it's rolled up right now, but it looks like it's
Yeah.
the wood chipper scene from Fargo movie, which was an awesome lithograph, and he was kind enough just to send it to me without even asking. So thanks again, Eric, for that. Awesome, man. This is really, I really enjoyed talking to you, Nicholas. So yeah, did you enjoy night one, night two more? Was the whole experience just fun overall? What would you say about the whole experience of you seeing Guns N' Roses in Bogota, Colombia?
Yeah, it was really a very good experience. It's not a good show. It's a very good experience for me as a Guns N' Roses fan. I mean, I would recommend to you see him anytime you can see. I just bought the 2 dates because I like, as I mentioned you, I have to experience in a very different perspective the set list, the show was exactly the same as I told you. I want to see Axel's voice performance during both shows. Mentioned you the altitude here in Bogota, but it was perfect for me. I mean, if there's a third or fourth night here in Bogota, I will pay the tickets again.
Mm.
I don't mind, because I really love Guns N' Roses, and I hope they start anytime soon doing something like an album or like that, because I still hear the records, and like the first time I hear songs like, for example, Coma, or November Rain here in live. It was very good. But I really want to hear them playing songs they never played in a very long time. For example, Locomotive, they played, I don't know, like few years ago, but they haven't played for a little while, for a long while. I mean,
Sure.
Locomotive, for example, as we talk about the acoustic show idea, for example, you're in the first, it will be a very, very, very cool song to play and to hear.
Yeah, I shared that. I saw it on Facebook, and I shared it from the video. So the Facebook is the credits given on Facebook, but it was the video of you went to first from the
Yeah.
1993 concert in Saskatchewan, Canada, and just a
Yeah.
great performance of it. And you're right, I had the same thought, and it's kind of bouncing off what we were talking about with Wichita Lineman and Blackbird, the acoustics of it, and that would just be a great sing-along song to have. It's interesting. Yeah, it's an Izzy song, and Izzy's not, but maybe it would be a great tune to bring him back on for a show. We still all hope for a one-off like that, or we hope that Steven Adler comes back for a one-off. So there's a lot of things up in the air. I just think for fans like us, I'm sorry, I will group my 39-year-old self with a 24-year-old now. I
Yeah.
I have to take what I can get because I did not experience this band in its heyday like that. So listening to the shows or what's been released, just a little that's been released so far for the upcoming box set, Nicholas and I did not experience that Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
We really wish we did. And that's what made us fans. And now we're experiencing this great, evolution of Guns N' Roses for sure. But yeah, I mean, not the dangerous, I guess for the better, because your mom doesn't need to worry anymore. That's
Not
the
anymore.
best part.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best part of it all. So, Nicholas, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and more so for reaching out, for wanting to do this fan review. That means a lot. Any other GNR things I didn't ask you? Anything about your fandom that you make sure you want to get out there, since you don't have any? It seems like you have no Guns N' Roses friends. Anything you want to make sure you get off your chest while I have you?
Yeah, no. Just first of all, thanks to you, Brandon, for having me. I mean, talking about Guns N' Roses and talking about my city, and have the opportunity to bring this experience and bring my opinion to the audience who probably may not know about Colombia or South American countries, and to share them that, yep, Colombia and South American countries are part of Guns N' Roses history right now. And it's a very cool thing to share with you and the audience, that kind of things that makes us together as Guns N' Roses fans, to share with you my thoughts about the two shows, and gathering around with the ideas and stuff, and materials that Guns N' Roses have. So Brenda, thank you so much, and maybe you have the opportunity to came here to Colombia, not also to experience any rock and roll show, to visit my country, but I recommend to you Argentina if you are going to experience a rock concert. Maybe it's a kind of unsafe, as you can see the videos. Maybe you can experience a little bit of the same as America. You can sit here and experience the show, but yeah, it will be very, very cool if you came here to visit Colombia anytime.
I know my wife is, and I appreciate, one of the things I love about her is that she's pushing me to travel more, and she already has, because she's already seeing, I don't know, for the third or fourth time, Dave Matthews in Mexico in a few weeks. So I know that's not quite the same, but she will travel anywhere. She goes from East Coast to West Coast all the time for Dave. So I asked this question on Twitter today. How many countries have you seen Guns N' Roses in? And for me, just the U.S. and Canada. Yeah, there have been a handful of cities here in the U.S., but yeah, to be able to experience Guns N' Roses in another country, and to experience the culture too. I don't want to be always surrounded by fire, fire trucks
Yeah.
here in Queens all the time. There's a big world out there, and the fact that the Guns N' Roses is a common thread. That's the thread we're following. So, any
Yeah.
of these, I call them, fan obsessions. I think early on in the podcast, where I would have a fan on and talk about them just being a Guns N' Roses fan. So yeah, I think this is a little bit more when we do these fan reviews, especially in other countries. So they definitely deserve an entire episode dedicated to them. So if you want to be just like Nicholas, if you want to come on and talk about your experience with Guns N' Roses in your city, in your country, you can either hit me up on Twitter at the AFD podcast, Facebook / the AFD show. It's email, the AFD podcast at gmail.com. Anywhere, I think, anywhere you can see us. If you just want to comment on YouTube, on Instagram, anywhere you see me post, or how you're listening to this episode, I'll read the comment, reach out, and we'll have some fun. All right. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.